Sit! Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
He's Garret Price.
That pause is getting longer. It's hard to know.
Am I supposed to shoot him? Should I be introducing myself? No.
What pause? My pauses are
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Look at those paws. You don't have hands. You have paws.
Dude, you're ridiculous. Honestly, you're feeling the heat to be an 0-4. Yeah, we're back. Going to recap a little bit of week 4 here, talk about some dynasty, hit on some of these injuries, talk about some rookies, talk about some surprises, some disappointments.
Surprise.
It's a process of dynasty. I would say this has been a really unique season, the 2024.
I feel like they all
season.
are, right?
To some extent.
I mean, in each their own right, but this has been like a lot of surprises, a lot of duds that you would not expect. Thank God for this week we got through not losing any major star to injury long term.
Not long term, yes.
Right.
Yep.
Long term is the key there.
Although there were a couple that I was a little worried about for a second. But
Oh, really?
yeah. I was when my boy Javonte went down for a second there,
Non-touched.
I was afeared.
Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
was afeared also.
I was like, no, you already got a whole year. I can't do it again.
This is the first week of buys. Week 5, the Browns, Chargers. There are going to be some players that are on buy this week, so make sure you pay attention to that and check your lineups. Some people are coming at the right time. And, this is where the dynasty season starts to change. This is where the trade market really starts to really hype
Ramp
itself
up,
up.
yep.
Yeah, ramp up. I don't know what I was going to say. Hemp up? I don't
Ham?
know. What
Heat
that
up,
be?
I think you were probably going to say, right? Heat up, ramp up.
I barely
probably
know.
together.
Hamp up.
Hamp it up.
Half the time my brain's just going and I'm listening to the words as they come out and I'm like, oh, okay, I said that.
That wasn't what I meant, but you guys know what I mean.
Otherwise I wouldn't say ever again either. So, as teams experience these bye weeks along with the injuries where the teams, the records are going to start to swirl.
Swerve? Swirl?
Switch.
Swirl? There's so many SW words.
Yeah,
It's like a chocolate vanilla.
That's when Rich's slight lisp really caught up to him. He just got caught in it.
nothing like having a list 25% of the time you talk and then you start using these S words. Can't use S's properly. Can't put G's at the end of my sentences. But here I am doing a podcast.
So wait. You're an overcomer. You really are.
Look at you. Try to be.
So what were you trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, this is where
Make him do it again?
Yes.
That's
what kind of friend I am, Garret.
It's going to be your best position to attack this 24 class. When we talk about times of the year, over the next 5 months will be your best chance to get 24 seconds.
4 or 5 weeks.
Oh yeah.
24 first. And it's going to be a very strong draft class again this year. I know we say it every year, but we've been blessed with some good draft classes.
Especially quarterback and Superflex leagues. Quarterback looks as deep as it's ever been and some great names at the top. Receivers looking awesome. Tight end at the top's looking awesome. The only one that's lagging behind a little bit is the running back.
But there'll be a couple players that land in the right position to be just fine. And if you need running back, now's the time to go out there and make some trades for some. And we'll talk about some of those guys as well. So much to talk about in this episode, so I can't wait to get into it. Before we do, I got to tell you about our friends over at Underdog. They had that mystery pick'em special right now. That's right. If you're a brand new sign up to Underdog, they have a mystery pick'em special up to a $100 deposit match to go along with that if you use the promo code NERDS. All you got to do is sign up at Underdog, use that promo code NERDS, make a deposit, head to the lobby to find out which player pick'em special that you got. So what are you waiting for? Go get UnderdogFantasy.com. Go to your app store. Use the promo code NERDS. They're going to double your first deposit up to $100. You're going to get some extra money, do some daily pick'ems, get ready for the offseason, have with all that money you win to do the best ball tournaments, which I'm doing pretty well in so far. It's early. And on top of that, we're going to give you a full year membership to the Nerd Herd. That's right. You're going to get access to all the tools, all the extra podcasts, Discord, so much more at Underdog with a GM sign up. Get out there, have a good time, play the game, use the promo code NERDS. Let's talk about some injuries.
Let's do it.
I'm kind of glad we didn't get a little bit less time to talk about injuries this week and the kind of drastic, moves you might have to make to overcome. Like me, who's a overachiever,
overcomer,
Okay.
over.
Yeah.
What did I call you? I don't even remember anymore.
We're doing porn podcast or something around here. Big news is not an injury update. Really, it's somebody possibly coming off the injury. We're going to find out Thursday, but Jonathan Taylor is supposed to return to practice. And we talked about last week how good Zach Moss has done in the wake of this injury.
Injury absence, yes.
I would assume he's healthy a year and a half later.
It's a rough ankle.
So, couple questions.
You never had a rough ankle, have you? They can be bad, my friend.
Okay, maybe. But, with somebody with his status and the medical opportunities available to him.
What are you saying about me and my ankles?
You don't have a crew, to look at your body all the time.
That's a good point.
Yeah, get a better posse.
Yeah. Guys, you are my posse. You
Why
guys
am I not looking at your ankle?
You guys just dissed yourselves. That's fine.
I don't know how. I don't know. I have zero medical training.
You're a bad ankle person. How about you?
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, exactly.
I never twisted my ankle real bad.
I actually have. I've done some pretty bad things to my ankles.
I only had one real bad one. It was senior year, second to last game of the season, and I rolled it, and it was like purple. I mean, it was bad. Still played. I only had one game left in my high school career.
Barney down there, dry humping your leg.
It's what it felt like.
I bet it was what it looked like too.
Yeah, I've done a lot of damage. Just like even running bases and like twisting ankles pretty bad like there. But my worst one was snowboarding. I went down a hill. I caught a groove somewhere. I was doing basically cartwheels, and then my board caught. And it wasn't even the side of the ankle that was injured that was black and blue. It was the other side, which is usually a pretty bad sign. Just started my job. I never even went to the doctor. I was hobbling around, and it still grinds all the way around.
Oh man, that bad, huh?
Yeah. I probably broke something.
You probably broke something. Yeah.
That's why I like snowboarding, because I always feel like my feet are secure, so I can't get hurt. I felt like I was skiing,
Just
like
kidding.
my legs would go the wrong way, and I'd have buckled knees. But hey, whatever.
I've actually never broken a bone. All the years of football, basketball, all those sports, I never broke a bone.
Either.
Yeah. Broken
zero sports.
Lots of fingers and my hand once. Yeah.
Whoa, power fingers.
I dislocated a finger one time. It was pretty nasty looking. Yeah. But
I've dislocated both my thumbs.
This one's
this
one's not even straight. Like it just hurts. It goes kind of this way and then that way. It's not like a offensive lineman, but it's definitely.
Well, for Dynasty body deformities.
Yep.
I feel like there should be some graphics that are on YouTube.
Yeah, go to the YouTube channel, check it out, hit that like button,
injuries.
Subscribe. Two questions here about Jonathan Taylor. One, does he play? Two, what are you doing with Jonathan Taylor? Are you buying? Are you selling? He got sold today in one of my leagues for 2 firsts. And another person said, I just got him for a first. 2 late firsts. Yeah.
Okay.
This is a tough one for me, right? I mean, I think if he gets traded, he's 100% playing. Mm-hmm. If he does not get traded, he could just keep stringing this thing out, can't he? I mean,
if he wants to get paid,
he could, but he's a pretty sharp dude, and not that feelings and emotions can't get involved in that kind of stuff and cloud your judgment on it, but I just don't see it being fruitful for him to miss any more time.
I don't see how it was fruitful to miss this time. You know what I mean? Like that's what I don't understand.
But in the sense of it's 4 less games on his body. He still is able to get out after this year. So, like, I get it.
But if you're not trying to force your way out, like, what's the end? Like, what's the end game? Like, just the 4 games? Like, that's it? Just the less wear and tear on your body?
I think so. I'm with Garrett. I kind of think so, too. I think he has no choice. I think he's paying here in the corner. He's got to go out and play. Yeah, if he wants to get paid, the best thing he can do is get on the field and put up big numbers.
I mean, yeah.
And I know that there are some people that are really worried about Zach Moss. I'm not too worried about Zach Moss. Like, I do think the first couple games back, it'll be a little more of a split as they ease him back into the offense.
Who's worried about him? His girlfriend from losing all the touches?
I have honestly, I've seen people talking about it on Twitter, be worried about Jonathan Taylor. It might not be as much of a workload as you think with Zach Moss there and performing so well.
Yeah. Hey, be worried about Kenneth Walker because they drafted Zach Charbonnet in the 2nd round. Oh, worrisome me over here. Yeah. Thank you.
So have you guys seen? I haven't seen a lot of Zach Moss. I haven't physically seen him on the field play. Has he looked good?
He's looked solid, but he's still not explosive.
Yeah.
He's still the same guy. I think he's developed a little bit he can read the holes a little bit better than he used to and some things like that. But he still doesn't have the juice that a Jonathan Taylor does. He doesn't have the strength. He doesn't once you pair him up with an Anthony Richardson, that could honestly be incredible. I hope somehow magically this relationship repairs because I would love to see them together for a long time. But I think it's he's going to play out this year, and he's going to be somewhere else next year.
Unless they agree to re-sign him long term.
Right, which I'd be surprised, but maybe.
You never know. I mean, Irsay's Whale's dead, so that kind of gives him some more time to spend some time on other things. I want to like save some whale, and the whale died, so.
Oh. Didn't know what the hell you were talking about.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to resurrect a whale. So, yeah, I mean, for me, Jonathan Taylor, I mean, let's look at the facts. We haven't seen him be Jonathan Taylor in going on almost 2 years, because of injuries and offense, and he just hasn't been 100%. And since then, he needs to prove it to not only to get paid, but he needs to prove it to dynasty owners. So, like that trade today where people got offered him for 2 firsts, like I have no problem selling running backs for 2 firsts. If I can get the capital. Definitely somebody who's going on to their second contract. That's my favorite running back to sell. It's a little bit different if I had Devon Achane right now and somebody said, hey, I'll give you 2 firsts, and I drafted him at 1. I mean, I drafted him at 1.4, but say I drafted him at like 1.9. That would be hard to resist, but I have a 21-year-old running back in a system that absolutely fits him to T. I'd rather have 4 years of that than 2 firsts.
By the way, I sent out a couple of Devon Achane offers with 2 firsts attached, and I haven't.
Did you do it before Sunday or after Sunday?
It was after last week's show.
Okay, and it didn't get it done.
Yeah, so it was before this second week, and it didn't get it done.
I wondered if how much that second week like really affirmed it for people, and was like, was it just like one fluke week?
It's over.
Yeah,
it's done for.
There is no window at all. It is sealed, tight, closed. Caulked,
and it doesn't matter what mode you're in. If you're a rebuild or contender, like what would you rather have? And we talked about this last week, and people, I know I got some tweets saying, "Oh yeah, guys, Devon Achane for 2 firsts. Who would do that? Like, I'd sell them to me right away because we put the video out of it too." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's the move I would make." Now we are another week later, and good luck. I mean, good luck trying to get him for 2 firsts.
Yep.
And something else we talked about that people were like, at the time. Remember, you and I talked on BSN about late first for Nico Collins. That's looking really good right now.
Another thing you guys are idiots for.
Yeah.
We're like, dude, we said we give up a late first for Nico Collins. People said we were idiots. I offered somebody a late first, and I got denied.
Did you really?
Right after that show. Yeah.
Wow.
And respectively so. And if somebody offered me a late first for Nico, I'd say no.
No, especially now how he's looked these past few weeks.
Yeah, man. This is the game. Dynasty is a very, we talk about all the time, riding that wave and where that wave is. And right now, the wave on those players is really high. And you just don't. There's a lot of other people that play Dynasty, and they use these opportunities to sell these kind of players. And I never understood that when they're selling these players for first. And you said the same thing about Puka, right? Like, and we talked about it, like, hey, I'd probably take a late first. That would be stupid if I would give him up for a late first at this point.
I was selling him for a second.
It's when you do that, you're hoping to replace that player first of all with that pick. What's the process here? So you have all this extra draft capital to move up and get one player, I guess, like a Caleb Williams or something along those lines, like. Having a guy like Devon Achane, I would 100% rather have him than 2 late first.
Absolutely.
I would rather have Nico Collins than a late first. You're talking about a 50% chance that player would just be on your roster in 3 years, let alone contribute at any 1 year of a wide receiver 1 running back number.
I'm not quite sure how we got onto Devon Achane, but while we're here, quickly, where would you have him? So you would still rather have Bijan.
I moved him up. I'll tell you exactly. I moved him up today.
Okay.
I moved ahead of Gibbs. You guys talk out.
All right, so Bijan is ahead of him.
Correct.
Christian McCaffrey, who would you rather have?
That's funny because Christian McCaffrey is probably my 3rd or 2nd rated guy, 2nd or 3rd rated guy.
Uh-huh.
And in our nerds in our Air Force league, Jared was trying to offer me, to trade for Christian McCaffrey, and I'm like, no, I'm good. I have Devon H.
You have both?
No, I have Achane or how do you say
Achane?
Achane.
Jackie Chan,
Achane. So I don't need Christian McCaffrey. So I'm good. So I probably don't have Achane high enough. But I would still take Christian McCaffrey over him.
Me too.
In a startup,
but it's not that far away. That I have him.
Brees.
Brees is either my 2 or 3. I can't remember.
Okay.
So it's those 2 that are 2 or 3.
Okay. And then Gibbs and Taylor are the next 2.
Gibbs, I think I have Taylor as my number 4, and I would still probably take Taylor, but maybe not. But yeah, probably.
So what does that mean?
Definitely maybe.
Well, definitely maybe.
I know we're gonna be switching our rankings over to we're gonna do tiers here soon. I updated my running back rankings today.
Mm-hmm.
And I have Bijan 1, Breece Hall 2, Christian McCaffrey 3, And I moved Achane up.
Dude, Christian McCaffrey is so good. I know that he is older for a running back.
He's like Travis Kelce. It's like, how do you factor in somebody that doesn't have super long left?
He is like a cheat code.
He's Travis Kelce.
He's so good. He's like Travis Kelce.
Over 20 points every game.
It's unbelievable.
After McCaffrey, I have Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and Devon Achane.
Come again?
After Christian McCaffrey, I have Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Devon Achane. Right behind them, I have Tony Pollard, Jahmyr Gibbs.
I can tell.
I got to move Kenneth Walker up here.
I think I would have him above Barkley. I would have Achane above Barkley. I don't know about Walker. Walker's close because he's also young.
I think I'd rather have Achane.
That one's close for me.
Can I just call him Jackie Chan? That one's easy. That's easier for me.
Devon Jackie Achane.
No Achane.
Just Chan.
Just
Devon Chan.
No, Jackie Chan.
I'll just call him Jackie. Just solely Jackie Chan.
Just straight up Jackie Chan.
All right. So when you call somebody Jackie Chan, we know who you're talking about.
Yes.
All right. Done and done.
Yes. I mean,
Andy Dolphin. Jackie Chan.
2 weeks in a row, looking good. What we saw on tape at Texas A&M, he's very explosive, always due for one of those big runs. He's done a back-to-back weeks where he had to run over 50 yards. Will that happen every single week? No, but we saw a player that was that fast and that explosive before put up big runs like that for 2 years. His name was Chris Johnson for the Tennessee Titans. Certain players had that kind of ability. I know Devon Achane's a little bit smaller, but again, if you go back and look at our rookie breakdown, this is a player that I said that I had him at 1-4 the whole process. And when we were doing it, I said I had actually Achane closer to Gibbs than Gibbs was to Bijan. And the reason I moved him ahead, we're going to talk about Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit later, so I won't go into too much detail about it. But, it hasn't still been involved heavily in the passing game, which we know he's capable of doing, but absolutely dynamite running the football. And that's what I wanted to see. And the fact that I've seen it work now back-to-back weeks against, people are saying, well, let's see him do it versus Buffalo, one of the best defenses, if not the best, one of the best defenses in the NFL. Same exact thing. Sky's the limit for him. If you want to put Achane as your number 2 overall dynasty running back, I wouldn't call you stupid. I think Breece Hall is more talented than Achane. But again, it's not about who's more talented ever. That's not what we're always
part
talking
of the
about.
equation.
It is part of the equation.
It's a big part of the equation too.
Right.
But it's about who's in the best position to succeed and who is succeeding. And this is where we're at currently, entering week 5 of the 2025 season. And in our jobs here doing the podcast is to look at that and also extrapolate that over long terms for dynasty players. We're always looking at 2 to 3 year windows is how we kind of operate here. # 2 to 3 year window. And that's the lifespan of a usually fantasy football running back. Achane to me looks like he has got that 4 to 5 year window, which is easily worth 2 first. I would take him over Pollard because the fact that he's 21 really puts that juice into those picks. So I would, just like we said last week, I'd still offer 2 first. Good luck getting it done. I put a couple offers that were pretty heavy out there for Achane. None involved 2 first, so I didn't want to go that extreme right away. I wish I would have in some because maybe would have got it done because now I know it won't get it done.
After this week,
after the show, and I got a couple replies where like, hey man, that was a real solid offer. I appreciate it, but like I had him. After like listening to you and you had him at 1-4, I took him at 1-4, or I've had him
1-4 and 1
too.
quarterback for what it's worth.
Yeah, for one QB leagues. Yeah. And I'm just gonna ride to see where it is, and that's a good dynasty owner, right? Like. I don't play the way, and I know most of you guys don't too. They're like, when these young guys come out and they do all these big things, like, ooh, I could sell them for more. Like, what are you doing? Like, what do you do? I know you want these liquid assets in Dynasty.
You got to get off the hamster wheel.
Yeah, you got to have cornerstone players, and this is a player that's a potential cornerstone player. Puka Nacua is a player that's potentially a cornerstone player. When you get a guy who's under the age of 24 in Dynasty is potentially a cornerstone player. Definitely, if you're in rebuild, anywhere you took them, they're a part of that process. Rebuilding or contender, they're a part of that process. Like you have players that are young that are helping you now. That's best case scenario because now you have a cornerstone piece that usually if your contender is a little bit older of a team, you have that piece to kind of offset that. If you're rebuilding, these are exact kind of people you want to have in your corner that build that rebuild. So
let's get back to injuries though.
Yeah. That's another Devon Achane. I'm just really happy.
So like we were saying, Jonathan Taylor.
So Jonathan Taylor.
Let's see what he does. Let's see if he practices Thursday.
Right.
And if he plays.
Right.
We'll talk a little bit more Jonathan Taylor in depth next week and see how it goes. The question, I guess, before we move on, though, is would you pay 2 firsts for Jonathan Taylor today if it was proposed to you? Like when that league today. If somebody came to you, hey, you need a running back, I'll give you Jonathan Taylor 2 firsts. Would you pay 2 firsts today, Matt?
So I am in a situation where I could use a running back. I even have Zach Moss in that league. And if the person who had Jonathan Taylor was like, give me 2 firsts, he's yours right now, I'd 100% do that.
Okay.
I think I would too, yeah. If I'm a contender, I'd be willing to do that. Any other situation, no. But true contender. And when I say true contender, I'm meaning like top team or second best team, and he puts me over the top for the best team.
And that's exactly where I'm at.
Yeah. I sold him for 1 first in a Superflex league, but like I told you guys before, this pick is almost guaranteed to be top 3.
See, and I would almost rather have in a Superflex league a top 3 first than I would 2 late firsts.
Yeah, 100%. So like, and I sold
similar
him for that.
value.
Yep.
So right now it's currently pick 2.
Okay.
Right now I'm kind of like every week I look to see where he stands.
Did you lose?
And he lost again. So he's it's currently pick 2. He probably won't. The worst team is doing the natural tank. Yeah, it's
that's all right. It's still Marvin Harrison.
It's still Drake May.
Yeah.
It's still Marvin Harrison. For me, it's going to be the quarterback. And I think we kind of learn. And I put a tweet out there too. This kind of, I know our buddy Ray Garvin was talking about it for a couple of people were talking about it as well. And I put that tweet out there saying, never take a running back over top, first round quarterbacks, no matter how good they are. And I had the guy throwing the scroll and said, "Yeah, I'm taking Bijan anyways."
Yeah.
In hindsight, and I want to piggyback off what Ray did on Twitter, so I don't want to like take his takes here, but like he said, in hindsight, they did a redraft. They took Anthony Richardson 1 and CJ Stroud 2. If I could redo it and go back in Superflex, I would take Anthony Richardson 1. I would take CJ Stroud 2. I would take Bijan 3.
I still think I'm at Bijan 1. And this is, I guess, knowing everything, maybe I would put Anthony Richardson ahead of him. But at the time, Anthony Richardson was still very risky.
That's why Bijan was 1, 100%.
And CJ Stroud, we didn't know what his ceiling could be.
100%.
We're starting to see his ceiling. So I have no problem with Bijan at 1. And especially when you look at the dynasty landscape, we're arguing about who should be running back 2. But there's such a big gap between Bijan and everybody else because everyone else is either young and unproven or injury history or old. Like, Bijan's the only one that has the whole package.
I agree.
So I would still probably be in the Bijan 1 camp, but it would be close with Richardson.
No, I have no problem with that, but anytime I have a chance in Superflex to get a 21.
Sure.
Sorry, CJ Stroud turned 22 today.
Oh, now he's too old.
A 21, 22-year-old quarterback that has already, like, CJ Stroud's breaking records.
He's looked fantastic.
Anthony Richardson, his running ability just catapults him into upper tier. So anytime I have a chance to get a young, established quarterback, I mean, that's always outweigh. Again, nothing against Bijan.
Yeah.
But if I was doing a startup, I would take those 2 players ahead of them. If I do the rookie draft again today, again, if you're picking that high, you're a bad team.
Right.
You don't need Bijan. We say it all the time, like, even if you don't need Bijan, use him a trade piece. Like, I would, and you probably get CJ Stroud maybe.
I think right now, I think Bijan would still go ahead of CJ Stroud in a startup. Like, I don't see CJ Stroud going in the first round yet.
No.
But Bijan obviously still would.
But that tier, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Other players that I heard this week, Kenny Pickett, he's MCL injury. Initially, they don't think it's that bad.
I know bone bruise is what they're saying.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin
right?
came out today and said it's a bone bruise.
Yeah.
They're on bye this week, so they have another week to get right, so he should probably be fine.
Yep.
T. Higgins, rib fractures. It looks like he might just miss a week, so that's not end of the world either. And we're going to talk about Joe Burrow
I don't
later.
even think he's been completely ruled out for this week.
He's not been ruled out.
Right.
So,
it's still a possibility. It seems unlikely, but it's definitely possible.
I mean, the way that they're playing, I wouldn't push it, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
maybe,
I get you. But the opposite could be true. It's like, oh gosh, we got to win. You got to get out there, T.
Right.
But
from a fantasy perspective, though, I might just rest him either way.
Oh, 100%.
Set him down in the bench.
100%.
We're going to talk Joe Burrow next segment, so I'll leave that as that because it's Javonte Williams. We mentioned Garrett's favorite Williams.
That's right.
Left the game in the first quarter. It was no contact.
I was terrified.
So I did not get a chance to see that as well. My son had a football game this Sunday, so this was like the first time I kind of missed a Sunday's worth of stuff, kind of right in that window. What happened?
So it was an outside run.
Yeah,
and he's getting close to the corner, and he just kind of slows down and falls more or less. And
that's like when your heart drops into your
I
stomach.
was like, did he re-tear something? Did he what happened? They said it's some sort of hip flexor thing. He might not even miss this week. Like they said, like it was even possible he maybe could have came back. Like it was just, and maybe it was just the natural reaction of his body. Like, something's not right. Yeah. Something's not right.
Yeah.
So he should be able to come back and be fine. It's just a bummer because against that Bears defense, this was the week for him to
go ahead and tear it up.
And I was like, of course. And now like this week they play somebody tough. Like I don't remember who it is, but
it's definitely worth while checking your waiver wire for Jaleel McLaughlin.
Yep, absolutely.
Undrafted free agent at Youngstown State.
He looks explosive.
Yeah, he came in when Javonte went down. He played. He actually looked really good.
He topped 100 yards all purpose.
Yeah, 72 yards, 3 passes for 32 yards. Looked real fast out there. Didn't completely take it over. Samaje Perine had the short yardage usage, but he looked pretty good. So Jaleel McLaughlin's worth a waiver wire pickup to see if any one of these running backs go down. He definitely has the opportunity to come in there and produce. I mean, he's not a big guy, 5'9", 187 pounds, but pretty explosive.
He's explosive. I tried to go out and get him like in the preseason for everywhere that I had Javonte.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to go out and kind of back him up with
no, smart, absolutely,
with that player. I wasn't able to acquire him in a few places. Some
other people were
stubborn owners out there.
Own it.
Justin Herbert, broken middle finger on his non-thrown hand. He should be just fine, not missing time.
And they're on bye also.
They're on bye.
Yep, they're on bye week 2. Juwan Johnson hurt his calf. That was announced in a pregame, right?
Yeah, it was one of those weird things where he wasn't on the injury report at all, and then all of a sudden, like right before the game, they're like, "Oh, he's going to be out this game,"
which is real cool because I started him.
I did a couple places too.
A couple lineups.
Yeah, not thrilled with that. He's had a rough year so far.
He has
did not
been part of the offense, man.
Nope.
At all. Just been an afterthought.
Yep.
And I thought that would have definitely gone the other way.
You would have thought,
considering they signed him to a contract this year.
Well, and Derek Carr's history with Darren Waller and using the tight end. Nope, not the case.
I want to see him next year with no Mike Thomas on the roster.
Okay.
But yeah, disappointing. Mike Evans, hamstring. He'll be on a different team next year. He's week to week. And
maybe
Pat Freiermuth, hamstring.
I was going to say, is he going to last the whole year?
Although they're 3-1.
Yeah, no kidding. Bake.
Well. Yeah, dude, Baker Mayfield, dude.
Baker.
You ever doubted it? Come on. Get out of here. Of course, they're 3-1.
Never doubted him for a second.
Bump him up in the dynasty ranks, by the way, too. Pat Freiermuth, his hamstring's hurt. He's a miss 2 to 3 weeks.
So a couple of hammies. But like you mentioned earlier, at least the Steelers are on bye. So you weren't expecting them in the lineup anyway next week.
No, we were not. Let me tell you guys real quick about our friends over at Sleeper. They're a new partnership we have. We're really the final development here on our Sleeper Mini. I've been playing with it. It's absolutely tremendous on there. I'll give everybody a free week when that comes out. But right now, Sleeper, they're offering a really new, exciting way to play DFS, like we've been talking about, where you can win up to 100 times your entry. It's the highest payout anywhere when you play DFS. You track your fantasy players and your sleeper picks all in real time. You choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players from the pregame, live in-game, or even across different sports. Pick more or less of the predicted stats. Only on Sleeper can you get up to 100 times the payouts.
Whoa.
You share them with your friends, get reward together. Use the promo code NERDS. They're going to match you up to $100 on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. And if you go on there now, they have Justin Fields over or under 48.5 rushing yards. DJ Moore over 3.5 or under rushing yards. Receptions. Sorry. Terry McLaurin over or under 4.5 receptions. Sam Howell over under 238.5 passing yards
against Chicago, probably. Okay.
Yeah, so it's that simple on Sleeper. Go on there, make a deposit. They're gonna match it. Use that promo code NERDS, and you'll be in good hands.
Nice. All right, FFPC. We've been talking about them for a while now, and it's because they are the largest high-stakes dynasty league community in fantasy football. They launched their weekly challenge. It's no draft, no salary cap, no convoluted rules. It's just 10-team, 30-team, or 100-team contest. You pick your players by Sunday's 1 p.m. start, and you just let them ride. Results will be determined by the total points accumulated by each lineup entry. Get $25 off a $35 or $200 entry by using the promo code NERDS. FFPC is a licensed fantasy game operator, so all prizes are protected and paid promptly. Go to myffpc.com. That's myffpc.com. Visit the weekly challenge and use promo code NERDS for $25 off any entry for new members.
So let's talk about, we talked about him earlier, Joe Burrow. I mean, when you're talking about from a fantasy standpoint, here's his fantasy football scores over the first 4 weeks. 3.2 points, 16.4 points, 9.2, 4.7. He's been an absolute statue in the box. It's clear as day that the calf injury is not right.
It's bothering him.
The Bengals made a terrible decision by not benching him and rushing him back for week 1 to play. They should have benched him just so he can get healthy and see where he is probably this week. I mean, how much different is their record going to be? Who knows? I mean, it's been
probably
atrocious.
exactly the same.
So what are we doing here with Joe Burrow? Or what do you guys do? I know what I'm doing with Joe Burrow, but how do you guys feel from a dynasty aspect? Let's throw this into a super flex conversation.
Yeah,
that's where it's
of course.
most important.
No, part of the reason I wanted to talk about this was because we, as the fantasy community, and us at Dynasty Nerds as well, we had him in that second tier. So Mahomes and Allen kind of got their own tier.
Sure.
And then the next tier.
Well, Herbert's in that tier for me, buddy.
Okay.
Herbert's my
I'm
number
talking
2.
I'm talking about generally.
Herbert's my number 2 overall dynasty quarterback.
He is mine as well. I'm talking about generally in the fantasy community, not necessarily just us. But those two guys were kind of in their tier. And then you had the Herbert, Hurts, and Burrow tier. Some people might throw another quarterback or two in there preseason, I'm talking about before the season started. But for the most part, it was those 3 guys. Did we maybe prematurely put him in there? I know that he's played well, looked good, but on a points per game basis over their career in games that they've started, Herbert averaged 21.2 points per game. Hurts, 22.9, so almost 23 points per game. Where Burrow was actually, he's only been at 19.4. So decent amount less than those 2 other guys. And I think part of it is because the other 2 guys run more than Joe Burrow does. Yeah. And I think that's probably the biggest difference between Burrow and those 2 guys. Were we maybe premature, like putting him in that tier a little too prematurely? Or is this a buy opportunity? How worried are we about the Bengals? I think these are all things that we need to figure out.
I mean, for me, you dig into the numbers a little bit more, and after the ACL injury that happened in 2020, he averaged over 20 points a game, 20.5 in 2021, and then in 2022 he averaged 21.7. So he's really creeping right up into the numbers you were just talking about for those other guys.
In one season, I mean, Herbert had like a 25-point season if we're just pulling one.
Sure. No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in the most recent history before this calf injury, he was pretty damn close to those numbers.
Sure.
And I think that's why he got into the conversation in that tier with all those guys. So for me, I'm not going to now knock him for playing clearly injured. I mean, this is clear that he's injured. He should not have been playing. He's trying to gut it out because obviously they just came up short last year. You know what I mean? That's got to burn.
For sure.
And then to not be able to start the season, no way. I'm coming back. I'm going to do this. This is going to be fine. I'm going to work my way through this. He's just not right.
Yeah.
And
I don't think it's just him. That entire offense. I mean, the line's not giving him time. There's a lot of issues there.
There are. I mean, it is not just him. We spoke about it earlier in this, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, how I think visually Joe Mixon has lost a step. And I don't think there's really a question about that. I think so. He's another guy that's probably declining a little bit. He's not at the peak of his career anymore. And T. Higgins banged up and just not playing, now he's banged up, and Chase and him didn't get off to a great start, Chase and Burrow, the first couple of games. So it's been a weird year for them. The whole offense is out of sync. Right. Is it all Joe Burrow's calf that's putting him out of sync? Perhaps, but maybe it's a lot of other things like you were saying.
No, I don't feel like we.
I'm not knocking him.
Yeah, I don't feel like we jumped the gun at all. I mean, like Matt said, he's clearly hurt. This is somebody who put up the best college season I've ever seen at LSU that year. Came in, immediately turned around the Bengals immediately, took the Bengals to a Super Bowl, took them to an AFC championship game. Like, he is a clear-cut tier 1 quarterback. Mike Brown made the highest paid player of all time for a reason. He's hurt. For me, if all I look at this is a buy window for Joe Burrow. Now, for most players, people would just say, get out of here with this nonsense. It's calf injury. But some people might make the move. They might get worried about it. So, no, I think he still belongs in that tier. I think he'll always be, for a while now, in that tier 2 of quarterbacks because he doesn't offer the rushing upside to enter that tier 1, unfortunately.
Right.
So for me, I think he's just fine there. And there's a lot of quarterbacks that were highly successful, the Tom Brady's, the Peyton Mann's, the Drew Brees, that were not rushing quarterbacks that got it done with their arms. And that's the kind of quarterback Joe Burrow is. He's still got Jamar Chase. He was always effing open, so he doesn't have to worry about that. Will T. Higgins be there long term? I don't know. I still have a very hard time envisioning that with the way Mike Brown sends money when they just gave Burrow. Once Burrow signed that contract, and they're going to have to keep Chase.
Right.
T. Higgins to me seems like he's and I think even more so now the Bengals are failing here.
Yeah, he seems like a luxury.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It looks like he's going to get probably good chance he gets traded once the Bengals. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at some point where, like,
if the Bengals are 2-6 or something like that.
Something's going to happen. They're going to shut Burrow down, put him on short-term IR or something.
Right.
And then, the season's over.
Should have started the season like that.
They should tank for Marvin Harrison Jr. anyways. Pair him up with Jamar Chase. And then
I would hate that
so bad. Could you imagine that?
Carolina is looking for a number 1 wide receiver. A lot of reports out there they're trying to trade for a receiver. T. Higgins would be a great fit there.
That would make a lot of sense, actually.
And they'd probably get a first-round pick at some point for a guy like T. Higgins.
The problem is I don't think Carolina has their first. The Bears have.
They don't have. The Bears have them.
So they would have to give maybe their 25 first, which that's tough as a rebuilding team to give up 2 firsts in a row.
Which is funny too because they'd sign them. They'll probably get T. Higgins probably for like a second and like a third or something along those lines. Sure. But like everybody's talking like, oh, Arizona's got the 1-2 pick. Meanwhile, because of Houston and Arizona, meanwhile it's the Bears has the 1-2 pick right now.
Yeah, they have
where's
the top
Justin
picks.
Fields gonna go? God, I would hope Justin Fields would go to Atlanta. That'd be sweet.
That would be sweet.
So for Burrow, to me, he's stagnant, which means he's not going anywhere in my rankings.
Yeah,
I think I actually bumped Jalen Hurts ahead of him, which I didn't do before.
So he dropped a spot for you.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Anthony Richardson's now going to start flirting with that Joe Burrow. Same situation. Do I think Joe Burrow is a better quarterback than Anthony Richardson? 100%.
Sure.
But from a fantasy football standpoint,
Anthony Richardson's over 23 points a game.
Yeah.
On points per game basis. So
let me get a little bit of that. Even same thing. CJ Stroud is putting up historic numbers. Meanwhile, Anthony Richardson's just as good from a fantasy standpoint just because of his
rushing ability.
I mean, just from a 18.7 for CJ Stroud, who is great. He's quarterback 10.
Right.
But obviously Anthony.
But he's more like Burrow in that sense, where he's not going to be running much. He can
23.1,
and Burrow can when he's healthy. Yeah. But that's just not a strength of his or something that he's going to be doing frequently.
23.1 for Anthony Richardson. So 23.1 I think would put him second or third.
CJ Stroud kind of reminds me actually of like Pat Mahomes
because Andy Dolphins won really
Dolphins. No, for me, it doesn't really move him. For me, I've always had him just a hair below where other people have him. So Anthony Richardson's entering that conversation for me. Tua's entering that conversation for me. Maybe Lawrence hasn't had a great year, so it's tough to like elevate him. But that's I kind of have Herbert and Hurts in a separate tier right now, and Burrow's kind of in the top of that next tier.
Yeah,
is kind of where I'm at.
You want to talk about a player that you should be questioning about where you have him overall ranked? Just be Jamar Chase. We said this. We didn't have this conversation on the air.
No.
But about a month or so ago, I was like, to you guys talking, I was like, I'm not going to say this on the pod, but let's see where we're at, like mid-season. I was like, Jamar Chase might be one of the most overrated Dynasty players. Now, before you clip that and say, like, I'm talking all this crazy thing, send the fantasy receipts is.
Yeah, Peter, don't clip it.
Jamar Chase is super talented. But same thing. What are you producing? And maybe when T. Higgins is gone, that changes everything. But, Jamar Chase is consistently slam dunk the number 2 overall
More
player.
importantly, maybe when Burrow is back, that changes. Because,
that changes as well.
I think they've coexisted, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, just fine when Burrow is healthy. The stuff going on with Burrow is no doubt it's knocking Jamar Chase down.
And I have Jamar Chase as my number 3 overall Dynasty player. So I'm not saying this is anything extreme, but, like, where's this tier of Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Like, I would say no, it's Justin Jefferson's in that tier by himself. And I would say Jamar Chase to me is a lot closer to value-wise of A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, that tier, than he is to Justin Jefferson. Because to me, I would take Justin Jefferson 10 out of 10 times with that first wide receiver pick. Now, to be fair, I would take Jamar Chase probably 10 out of 10 times as well. But when it comes to overall production, year in and year out finishes, those guys are consistently pretty much finishing higher than Jamar Chase.
I don't disagree with you that Justin Jefferson is a tier to himself right now. He just looks.
It's like 150 yards every week.
CeeDee Lamb last year, Jamar Chase wide receiver 11, CeeDee Lamb wide receiver 5. That's in 2022. In 2021, Jamar Chase was wide receiver 5. So then CeeDee Lamb, did he get hurt that year? What's going on with CeeDee Lamb? He's not on that list. So that was his best finish, right?
This is only his third year, so.
Correct. So that was his best finish. So this is not me trying to clip and say go set Jamar Chase by any means. It's just, but when we're talking about putting something on your radar.
Well, you would sell if you could get AJ Brown plus, would you sell?
Oh, 100%.
And I think that's where that is. Then, you wouldn't necessarily sell Justin Jefferson for AJ Brown plus.
If I can get CeeDee Lamb plus for, and let's just call the plus a first, right? So let's see if this, because he's a hot Dynasty. He's number 2 overall. If I get CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jalen Waddle,
Garrett Wilson,
plus a first for Jamar Chase, I would take all those.
Chris Olave.
It's pretty close. I'd entertain it. Depends how well the first is. It had to be like a mid first at that point.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm
just throwing out names that are in that range.
There's still things that bug me about Chris Olave and his non-physicality at the NFL level.
Olave for me is in that tier 3.
Okay.
But which is a good tier to be in.
Exactly. I don't mean to knock Chris Olave. There's just every time I watch him through those lenses that I saw his rookie tape in, and I still see things that
you don't love.
That I just don't love.
Okay.
Fair.
All right, let's talk about some players here that we might love. Let's see if we're what are we doing here, Garrett? We're going to see if we're higher or lower on
Yeah, so this is where these players currently sit rankings-wise. We're going to talk about whether we
not ranking-wise, fantasy-wise.
Sorry, yes, their actual fantasy scoring output.
Yeah.
So top 12, they're at number 12, or they're at 17, or they're at 3, or whatever. Do we think this player is going to improve and score higher than this? Do we think they're going to, lower a little bit, or are they going to stay pretty much right at this exact same spot? So some of them are higher end players. Some are maybe a little bit lower, but for most of the part, all of these are 1s or 2s at their position.
Yeah, so Justin Fields on the bat, currently sitting at quarterback 12. Helped him get a bump here because actually Justin Fields just had the best game he's ever had as in the NFL. It's the first time he ever threw over 300 yards. It's the first time he's ever thrown more than 2 touchdowns, which he threw 4. And, of course, it was against the Broncos defense, which is one of the worst defenses I've ever seen in my entire life. So, Fields come off a monster game. And we kind of talked about this a little bit last week where he started off slow last year and where he finished
4 weeks
being a top 5 quarterback. So, sitting at quarterback 12, I think the biggest thing Justin Fields is going to need to do is make sure that the Bears don't finish with the number 1 pick or put them – because the problem is – here's the problem. Like, whoever has the number 1 pick is taking Caleb Williams. There's no –
And the problem is he can even do everything right and get them to pick 10. But if Carolina's the worst team, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
It doesn't matter.
And that's the tough part.
And that's what sucks because Caleb Williams is that special. Like, he's that good. He makes – when you watch Pat Mahomes play football, that's how it looks when Caleb Williams plays football. He can get the ball out anywhere, on the move, side – it just – he makes – this past game he played. Just ridiculous. So, for me, when I look at Justin Fields, I'm still in on Justin Fields. I don't love the system he's in, but, like, there are some concerns about his long-term value because it's not – everything's not even in his court here. That's the problem. Like, he could end up turning this around a little bit, get switched to another team, and something like that could derail his career.
Or it could improve his career.
Or it could improve.
He could go both ways.
He could.
And that's what I think makes him a hard one to nail down as far as value. Because there are people that are just going to want to wash their hands, right? They see the kind of writing on the wall. They see what's going to come at the end of this tunnel here. And it like you said, like they have not just their first-round draft pick, which was going to be pretty good. They also have Carolina, who is trending in the wrong direction as well. So this could really this could really turn out bad for Justin Fields, and not because of what he's or how he's playing and all that kind of stuff. So it's difficult to nail down. It's hard to get a value on this guy. I do like, obviously everyone loves his rushing ability, and his upside for fantasy is fantastic, right? I mean, so quarterback 12, he could absolutely go up from there.
He's a QB1 right now.
And for what it's worth, this is for this season.
Right.
So not necessarily dynasty value. This is where he ranks so far this season.
But, and I know Anthony Richardson missed a game, and that's why, but he's ahead of Anthony Richardson. He's ahead of Jared Goff. He's ahead of Baker Mayfield. And these are guys that are playing well. He's dominated Joe Burrow. He's ahead of Deshaun Watson. He's ahead of Trevor Lawrence, which,
he's had a sneaky rough season. Like, it's not been good for him so far this year.
Yeah, but, for Justin Fields, though, he's put up over 11 points every single game, which went from a quarterback you wanted to be in the 20s. But, again, he's quarterback 12. He started off slow last year. Joe Burrow historically starts off pretty slow as well for the first couple of games here, too. Now, outside the calf injury.
This is
over the last couple of years.
Worse than normal.
This is historically bad.
I mean, I guess, they're really shorting up here for me is, I'm still in on Justin Fields. He's always going to bring that rushing ability. We haven't seen it yet, but I did like his deep ball and his accuracy coming out. So again, we haven't seen it in the NFL level at a high consistent pace here. Mm-hmm. But I think still he offers a youth where I have no problem making a move for him, because even if it doesn't work out here in Chicago and they have a position to get Caleb Williams, somebody will trade for Justin Fields and he will get another opportunity to succeed. So for me, I am using this window to buy Justin Fields. I only feel comfortable giving up a first in Superflex leagues, though, and that's about as close as I would give up.
Is that going to get it done, you think?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. Strength of schedule is another thing, right? He's got a pretty good schedule.
One of the easiest ones at quarterback.
Rest of the way. So, I mean, I think obviously QB 12 might be his low spot. And we talked about it last week. He was very volatile. He's hard to nail down. So, if they don't allow him to pass, because obviously this past weekend was magic. He was great. This is what you want to see out of him. But if they kind of take the ball out of his hands and make him more one-dimensional, maybe he's making a little bit more mistakes again, he could drop a few spots and be out of the QB1 situation, but it's not going to be too far. He always has that ceiling or that floor, just due to his rushing ability. So even if they take away some of the passing stuff, I still think he's going to maintain pretty close to QB 12, if not going up.
Yeah, I see him improving this year. I get that it was Denver, and they're a really bad defense. They're not good.
Right.
But the confidence and anticipation that he was playing with, and I know you didn't get to really see much of the game, but he was actually anticipating throws. He was getting through his reads. He was the snapshots and things that you saw the previous weeks that he wasn't doing. Those were the things that he was doing here. So sometimes, we want to talk about all of the physical attributes, and I get it because they're the easiest thing to measure. But sometimes it's just what's going on up here. And when you can shift that confidence level, sometimes that's all it takes to, now I'm not half a second late and now I'm anticipating and I'm on time and all of these things. So he looked way light years better to me. And it wasn't just because he was running. It wasn't just because they were all easy gimme throws. Some of them were in windows that he was making. So I'm very confident that he's going to improve on this. I think even in redraft, I'm bullish on him, but dynasty wise, I'm still absolutely buying. I bought him in one league, tried to buy him in another. It didn't quite work out, but I'm still in on him because I think, one, he's going to be better the rest of this year with the easy schedule and improved confidence. But two, I just don't see a scenario where he's not a starting quarterback for somebody. Kind of like how I was talking about Kyler earlier. I just don't see how he's not one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the league.
Would you pay 2 first for him?
That's where it gets tricky. I can do a first and a second. Where it gets to 2 is where I'm really struggling
because of the red flags.
Exactly.
Believe in a player, but sometimes it's not just a player you have to believe in. It's all got to come together.
Exactly.
So before we move on, Chase Claypool not even active last week, and all of a sudden the offense kind of takes off. Anything?
That's funny. I didn't think about that.
Anything to that? Did all of a sudden the number 2 reads go from a guy that maybe wasn't in the right position, maybe
wasn't trying,
wasn't on task,
and all
of a sudden it's a Cole Kmet. That's the second read or the second look in the offense.
I thought you heard it came from under the table under Garrett's seat.
Coincidence? I don't know. I honestly don't. I guess we'll have to see till next week. Sure. It sounds like Chase Claypool is not long for this team.
Oh, he's done.
Yeah. So I guess we'll find out what
that low nerd score is feeling better and better. Felt terrible after the first year.
What's that?
Jared and I had like a really bad nerd score for him, and we were like, "Oh man, we really missed on Chase Claypool." Maybe we didn't. Maybe he just had a really lucky.
Dude, all those players that we kind of like, same thing. Like people, we had the same thing on low on Juju, and he had the one, and people were like, "Oh, you missed on Juju." Like, did we really?
Yeah.
Did we really?
No,
let's talk about a little about Sam Howell, quarterback 17 right now. Are we higher or lower on Sam Howell at quarterback 17, Garrett?
Yeah, Sam Howell has really, really impressed. Another week where so close to upsetting a team. They did end up losing to Philadelphia, and that's going to be the tricky part for his long-term value is, can they keep this thing afloat? Can they sneak into a playoff spot? Not clean house of everybody with the new ownership and all that stuff. But he's played really, really well. I've been really, really encouraged by all the things I've been seeing from him. Tricky part from him is he does have a tougher schedule going forward. It's not a super easy division, although the Giants are looking easier and easier by the week. But it's not an easy division that he plays in against Philadelphia, against Dallas. We'll have to see how things go, but I think he's going to stay right around quarterback 17. I know people are eager to move him up because of how well he's played, but I don't think things get easier for him. And he reminds me a lot of Baker, and that's not an insult at all because Baker's playing really well, but in the sense where he's not a super great running quarterback, although people want him to be. He did it off of effort in college, not off of ability in college. So I just don't think there's much of a rushing floor there, and I don't know that this is as good of a unit overall. Although I love Dotson, I love McLaurin, just don't know if it's a good enough unit to really boost him above a mid quarterback too.
Yeah, see, I was excited about him for his rushing ability, for what he's been able to do in the past. Haven't seen that this year at all.
He's just not he's like you said, like Baker Mayfield was able to run the ball in college and get away from some guys.
Yeah.
But the defensive linemen are just so much faster in the NFL that he's just not that kind of athlete.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that's the issue with him.
Yeah, he's for me in Superflex, he's right around there. Like he's got the youth, quarterback 17, but you're right. There is some questions about new ownership. Will Rivera, be there next year if they don't make the playoffs? If Rivera's not there, does that mean Sam Howell is the starting quarterback? Because with this draft class, like Garrett said before the show, this is one of the strongest quarterback classes we're going to see in a while. There's a lot of moving parts here where Kyler could potentially be on the move. Justin Fields could potentially be on the move. Does Baker,
Cousins could be on the move.
Does Baker take Tampa Bay to the playoffs? Does he explore free agency? Does he get franchise? You know what I mean? There's a lot of players, like you said, that could be on the move here at quarterback. So for me, Sam Howell, there's no guarantee here that he is the long-term answer, even though he's looked pretty solid. But we've also seen players come in like Taylor Heineke and look solid in his offense as well. So for me,
did you say for 4 weeks?
Yeah, for 4 weeks.
So for me, for Sam Howell, he's looked pretty solid. But for dynasty wise, like if I could flip him for a first in Superflex, I'm doing that. It's more of a wait and see. Middle and quarterback again. Quarterback 17. That's a good quarterback to have in Superflex, but I'm still not all in for the long term.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, he's a 5th round draft pick. He looks good. He looks like somebody he belongs in the NFL.
Absolutely.
And he's probably one of these guys that is going to be a borderline QB1 for a team that they're always going to be trying to kind of replace for his entire career. And for fantasy purposes, he's going to have some nice QB2 finishes. I don't think he's ever going to be a QB1. So for that reason, I mean, if you can move him, like Rich said, for a first, do that. I mean, that in Superflex.
How much better is Sam Howell than Brian Hoyer in his prime?
Brian Hoyer in his prime. I mean, Brian Hoyer was a professional quarterback. I think Sam Howell is working his way to being a professional quarterback. Okay. How about that?
Kyren Williams, currently a running back number 3 overall for the LA Rams out there. Rams coming out, just playing football here, winning football games. It's insane. Kyren Williams running back 3. Is this long-term?
I mean, long-term, no. But like this year, do we think he stays at running back 3?
They got Ronnie Rivers a little bit more involved this week out there in L.A., and, I mean, it's always about the usage, and all the usage is there. They're about to get Cooper Kupp back as well to help for this big-time throwing game. Tyler Higbee, they just extended for 3 more years out there, and he had a little Achilles injury too. But his offense is really starting to hum a little bit here. It's helping Kyren Williams. But for me, I'm every week scouring my league to see who needs a running back and package in Kyren Williams in my second to try and get their first. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't see a long-term answer here in Dynasty. And you never know. Sometimes these guys like this stick for a couple years. Like, like James Conner. Like was James, I never thought like James Conner was going to be a consistent year in, year out basis. But for the last like 3 or 4 years, James Conner has been a very viable Dynasty fantasy football running back.
Yeah.
Can the Rams try to like avoid their cap woes and just stick with Kyren Williams, or will they grab a guy in the 3rd or 4th round and we're talking about him next year like, oh, this guy's better than Kyren Williams, he can come in and beat him? It's tough. I think for this year, there's a very good chance Kyren Williams finishes the top 12 fantasy football running back. Very, very good chance. For Dynasty,
it's crazy volume.
Yeah, and volume's key. And I know it's redundant here because we talk about like Mike Davis in Atlanta, how he finishes running back 12 with no talent, just on volume. Kyren Williams is getting that, more talented a guy like Mike Davis, being more involved in the passing game, which is also a huge bonus for him. I think he's be a running back 1, and I think this is something you just have to, if you have him, I am every week trying to offload him to a team that needs a good running back. And I'm not settling either. I'm not just taking anything. Either I want a young upside guy I like. Maybe if you like Jameson Williams for the Lions is about to come back. That's a guy you gamble on.
Jahan Dotson.
A Jahan Dotson, somewhere around there, like those guys. Or I'm trying to package him in a second if I'm a contender and move up to a team that's in the middle, somewhere around there into the first.
You might not even have to package your second. Some contenders are really in on him.
He's your classic.
Really?
He is your classic short-term asset, right? I mean, you try to get in, get out, and get whatever you can for this guy as high. I mean, like right now you're at a peak. He's number 3 running back. He's getting all the work in this offense. And to answer your direct question, is he going to stay, running back 3 or go down? I think he's going to go down. I do think he's got the work, like you said, Rich, to stay in the running back 1 conversation, which makes him a great sell. So Kyren Williams, if you're not a contender, if you're not a serious contender, I'm 100% selling.
All right, so here's some deals recently for for Kyren Williams, and this is going back just the past 4 or 5 days. Kyren Williams for DeAndre Swift, Kyren Williams for a 24 first, Kyren Williams for Javonte. Kyren Williams.
Let me ask you before you move on.
I've taken all of the other side so far, on all of these, on each one I've read.
Okay.
I don't know about you guys.
You'd rather have Javonte.
So you'd rather have Javonte?
Oh yeah.
I was just curious because I know you're a Kyren guy as well.
I was a Kyren guy, and this has been this. I haven't talked about it much. It has been like a little bit of affirming because his stock plummeted after the terrible 40 time and stuff like that. I was like, guys, he's a good runner. He's not explosive, but he's a really good runner.
Wish I would have listened.
So I do have him like on a few teams because of that where I took him late. So I am happy about that.
Me too. Goose egg, Rich.
0.0 shares.
Yeah. Kyren for a 25 first.
I'm going to start listening to Garrett.
Kyren Williams for Drake London.
I'm just kidding, dude.
I
never would have gotten Justin Jefferson if I listened to that guy.
Yeah, so maybe you don't even have to do what I was saying where you got to package a second up. You might be able to just get him for a first.
Yeah, Drake London right now.
But maybe you just offer your third in Kyren for the first, like to really
just to make sure.
Yeah, get a little.
I'll be generous.
Yeah, hey, I'm gonna kind of slightly overpay here. Yeah, or not overpay. Give you the deal of the century here just for a first for running back 3 overall.
Man,
yeah, these are the kind of guys that pop up all the time, and you always want to make those moves. And even if he ends up being a running back there for like even next year, I still feel very comfortable I can get a first or any of those returns that you mentioned.
We don't have a lot of time left, but there's a couple specific ones I wanted to get to. We talked briefly about Nico Collins. Nico Collins currently at wide receiver 7.
Woo.
Do we think this year, and we can talk long-term too, this year. Is he going to stay in that wide receiver 7 range? Is he going to, higher? I doubt that he goes much higher, but possible. Does he go lower? But then also value-wise long-term, how bought in are we to Nico? Because he's now tied to a very, very good quarterback, and he's looked every bit what we hoped he could be when we talked about him 3 years ago.
11 targets, 9 targets, 3 targets, 9 targets. Dude's getting work, man.
Yeah.
There was that one.
Weird. That was the Tank Dell week.
Yep.
Where Tank just went off.
Yep.
It happens.
It does.
Yeah, 14 points, 27.6, 5.4, 35.8. He's got better probably long-term longevity value that I would think than Tank Dell, just in my opinion. There's a very good chance that Nico Collins probably could get extended for
24 years old.
Only 24. Young.
Yeah,
By the way.
Was Matt not here for that show? We talked about it?
No, that was on BSN that you and I did that.
Oh, that was on a BSN show. So, on the BSN show, him and I were talking to Nico Collins, and we came to the conclusion, like, we would 100% give up a late 24 first for Nico Collins.
And that was like after week 1 or something like that.
Yeah.
That we were talking about this.
We got some pushback on it, and here we are. He's still wide receiver 7, and there's some good chance. I mean, if you're going to gamble,
you're going to have to pay more than that now, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this whole offense is just so much better than we thought it was going to be, right?
So much better. It's a defensive head coach. You don't normally see that.
Right.
Where the passing game comes along that quickly.
Well, you hired a good offensive coordinator, though.
They did. They absolutely did. But typically, you get the more, okay, we got Dameon Pierce. We want to build up our defense. Ground control. We want to make sure we control this game, time of possession. Like, no, he's letting it rip.
Yeah.
Every week he's getting better and better at doing it too.
It is like the new NFL, right? I mean, I feel like this is kind of it. It's like, hey man, if you're a defensive guy, they're starting to learn, like, facing that kind of offense, the one that San Francisco runs where people are moving all over the place, it's a pain in the butt to defend. So let's do that. Let's do what's difficult to defend on offense. Let's go run that on offense.
Yep. Yeah, and Nico's the number 1 receiver there. Even a guy like Dameon Pierce is a good buy. I mean, his usage is a ton. It's just the touchdowns out there. The team's starting to push the football downfield, so those touchdowns are going to come for him as well. I would 100% pay a first still for Nico Collins.
Absolutely, and I might even give a little on top.
I think I would give more on top as now. Well, it's a good gamble to bet on, right? Like this is like black came up 4 times in a row. Like, where are you going to put your money? You're going to put it on red because the odds are it's going to hit. I feel much more comfortable having Nico Collins from the age of 24 to 29 over the next 5 years than I do gamble on a late round rookie pick in the first round in any draft class, which is, like we said again, we went through the data, 50-50. So for me, I would give a little bit more on Nico Collins as well. If I needed a receiver, like I was a little bit more desperate, I'd probably give my first and a second for Nico.
I think I'm at that point too, or I would give like a mid first. Like, I think either of those two things I would be willing to do at this point.
And I really hope he just my only concern here, the only thing I'd be hoping here is he stays in Houston for the rest of his career. Or he gets another contract with Houston.
This is last year, right? Is that
this is year 3, so he has one more year after this, which is good. The other thing that helps too, you can always be worried about is a team going to draft their young quarterback another receiver to really they don't have a first round pick this year. That pick is in Arizona. So you don't have to worry about them utilizing a first round pick on another stud receiver or something like that.
Receivers in the second round.
There are a lot of guys in the second round,
but they don't have Cleveland's.
They do have Cleveland.
Oh, they do have Cleveland
from Deshaun.
That's true.
Yeah,
yes, they do have a first round pick.
Yeah, dang it.
And it's going to be a pretty good one.
Right now,
I mean, shut your whore mouth.
It depends on a lot of things. Anyway,
where are we at showtime, Wes?
Hold on. Before we move on, we're done with the show.
He said we're done with the show.
We're done with the show. The show's over.
Screw it.
The show's over, but I got to ask a question.
Oh, jeez.
Deshaun Watson apparently was cleared to play and decided not to play this weekend?
It's opposite of Baker. Everybody in Cleveland got mad at Baker for playing through the injury and not playing well.
Yeah.
And now everyone in Cleveland's mad at Deshaun Watson
for
not playing when he's like, that's the hard part is like it's a no-win situation. I'm more on like the Baker side of things. Like I'm more old school in the sense of like you rub some dirt on it. You do everything you can to get out there and make them pull you. That's just more my mentality, but
I feel here's the way
I was just curious how you guessed that.
It is
as a diehard Browns guy. The way I look at it is, Deshaun Watson's coming off his best game as a Cleveland Brown. He got hurt. He didn't practice all week. Mm-hmm. All week he did not practice. So that right there should have been like a hint. even though we thought he was going to play, he historically plays through injuries. Deshaun Watson, like you can't question his toughness over the history. I think he feels like he went out there, tested it. He was not 100%. He was in pain and felt like he couldn't have to be 100%. And I think after the first 2 games where he did not perform well at all, like he doesn't want to put himself in position to have another bad game versus a team like the Ravens and go out there and not be able to help his team. I felt
I think it absolutely had to do with the Ravens.
Yeah, he couldn't perform.
I wouldn't want to go out there after the Ravens or against the Ravens either.
But here's what I think is more concerning was the fact that head coach Stephen Stefanski actually came out and said, "Yeah, I don't know. He was medically cleared to play, but chose not to because he said his body wasn't right." Or like,
and we trust him. He's listening to his body. Like he definitely it was like passive in the way he said it, but it definitely was throwing him under the bus. Like if I'm the head coach, I'll take that. I'll say, yeah, I didn't, that's on me. I didn't think he was ready to go.
He never does that for any. It's really out of character for him to say that. That's where my concern is and where the red flag pops up.
No, that's exactly why I asked. Because if I was a head coach and I'm saying that about my starting quarterback, it's because I don't like my starting quarterback.
Yeah, but they wanted an adult, so
they what?
They wanted an adult quarterback. In Cleveland.
I'm just
glad they got.
I'm just trying to flush out some stuff, guys, with you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. We could have been talking about Cole Kmet right now, but instead you brought up heartbreak.
No, we can talk about Cole Kmet next show if you want. I mean, I know.
Well, we got a next show coming. If you want to check out that show, it's a Nerd Herd show. We always do 2 podcasts every single week. One's for our members, which is a Nerd Herd. You can always join Nerd Herd. Like I said, if you join Underdog, deposit $10. We're going to give you a free membership, or you can just join already. And, all those memberships, we're just going to keep on building really cool tools for you to use. Check out the Dynasty GM. You get that with your membership. The Nerd Score, the Film Room, we just had a huge, massive film room update for all the college games right now. So the Dynasty
which is very early, by the way. I want to say, I'm very proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, we've gotten this tape really early, started cutting it really early. And these are games from this year. These are not games from last year. These are games that are already in the first 4 or 5 weeks of the college season.
All 22 film. All 222 film. So we give you all the tools you're going to need to succeed in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Check it out. Nerd Herd there. We said Underdog, get a free membership. If you enjoy the show, leave us a rating and review. Until then, we'll be back next week talking Week 5 Dynasty Fantasy Football.
Adios.